going back to, starting your career in a big city, are you going to leave or stay? Speaking to you before, I know we have very different like POVs on this. You want to take a stab at it first?
So let's set the context, right? We're in New York City. It
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't get bigger than this. So that's our perspective, and that's maybe our biases, right? So living in New York and growing up in New York probably colors our biases. I have lived in a small town. I have done enough traveling in the country to get a feel of smaller cities. So I have some perspective on this. And I'll go straight to the risk of staying in a big city.
Mm-hmm.
New York is expensive.
Yes.
Even in the pandemic, I'm scheduled to pay close to 2,500 for rent pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that painful look on your face, Derrick.
Yeah, man.
Right? Yes, it hurts me all the time. It's why I have some ramen noodles in the cupboard still, and I'm not in college anymore. These dollar pizzas are coming in clutch in New York City. So if you stay, it's going to be expensive forever. And that forces you to make sure you have a reliable stream of income. And that can be a lot of pressure. But there are also risks to leaving, right? So one, and I'm speaking mainly for like young professionals who want to elevate in their careers. If you take a look at where the big businesses keep their headquarters, right, it's going to be big cities or middle-sized cities. So you can name them pretty easily if you go across the United States. And where these headquarters arise, you will find tech hubs. You will find, it's no accident, you'll also find large college and university centers. So in case you didn't know this, big companies, startups, they like cheap talent. They see colleges and universities as pipelines for cheap talent. So you're talented, but since you're fresh out of school or still in school sometimes, they don't have to pay you as much,
Mm,
right?
that's a fact.
And that is why they're there. So it's no accident you'll see tech hubs right by college and university centers. So keep that in mind and use that for leverage as you go into your career. But when you leave, just know that you are risking losing that infrastructure to help speed up your career. I still 100% recommend folks to go into some of these big name companies, get that on your resumes. It's no accident on LinkedIn that you'll see on people's profile headlines, you'll see X Google, X Amazon. And nowhere else do you brag about your X's. No other
Fact.
place, right? So that's fine. It's part of your resume. So if you want to brag about that, that's cool. But these big companies, they're in big cities, so that's one thing to consider. Also, relationships are really based on. Excuse me. Let me backtrack. Your career ascendance is going to be based on relationships. So I want you to think about the relationships that you have with folks and see how much proximity and how close you are to people physically has helped your career. I'm pretty sure that we've had coffee chats in person, and that might have led to some wonderful opportunities that you might not have if you are just doing everything remotely and virtually. So I know we enjoy the freedom of doing things remotely and virtually, but I'm an in-person person. That's also a bias that I have. some of my most meaningful relationships, personal and professional, have been fostered because of that in-person contact.
Okay. All right. I do agree with you on a couple of things. With regards to the cost of living, I feel like something a lot of people don't realize is that the cost of living in New York is very different from any other like city or town or state. So let's say for instance, if you're working at Google here, you could probably be making like 120. But if you move to like Utah, that 120 is going to go down to like 70. So it hasn't happened yet. I haven't heard like a lot of buzz around it, but I know a bunch of companies are going to start to slash people's salaries like pretty soon. Once this like remote work life kind of like normalizes, they're like, oh, you're where? Oh, no. Like, we're not paying you that much. Sorry. Not happening. Going back to the original point, like, should you leave or stay? Like you gave great context before. Like, we are here. We have been here. Me, myself, I've been here my entire life. I feel like I'm at the point where I'm not tired of the city, but I can take a break from it. So I don't mind going away to some place where it's quiet. I have a yard. I have a pool. But also, it really depends on what the professional wants, as well as where are they at in their, career journey. I think if you're just starting out, I think you should be in the city because you need to be around. You need to you need to know like what's happening. And when you're in like that, I guess like that moment of calmness, when you're like when you leave the big city, like a bunch of people leave the big city when they're ready to have families because nobody wants to be like around that 24/7. So if you're at the point of your career where you are thinking about settling down and like having a family, leaving the city would be your best move. It's way too expensive to raise children, as well as have everything else here when the prices in other states are very, very different. So me personally, I'm at that point where I want to kind of just like settle down and have children. So I'm thinking about leaving the city that I'm in. However, I don't want to be too far from it. I still want to be able to kind of travel here, like just in case.